Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Totalbiscuit. I'm here to ask and answer for probably the 15th time the simple question of WTF Is War of the Roses. So, I covered this game back in Alpha, I've been looking at it throughout the beta, I played it at various events, I even played in a tournament for this bloody thing, and now finally it is out today. So the question is it any good? There were many problems with War of the Roses throughout its development, and I highlighted many of them in the videos that I presented, but we must remember the old axiom, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, beta is beta. But when your game is not beta, well, then those excuses evaporate. They go out of the window. It's not a case of, oh, they'll fix it later. It's a case of, this game is out, this stuff should be dealt with. So the question is, have they pulled it off? Alright, well, the menu looks fairly similar to what you saw in the beta. You have a rather large amount of customization for your crest, as you can see here. Customization is a big thing in this game. All sorts of different color patterns are available. I can swap around all manner of different things. Patterns in the background. Various different ways to display my sigil and prowess. I can also change my crest. That, I believe, is the Royal Honey Badger, if I recall correctly. And there are a wide variety of interesting-looking crests that you can apply to your helmet. And these will actually appear in-game if you happen to be wearing the right kind of helmet. Like, you're not going to get this stuff on top of an arming cap or one of those kettle pan hats. No, that's not going to happen. If you're wearing a proper full helmet, then yeah, you'll see it. Let us take a visit to the options menu, because why not? Well, that's a pretty good options menu, if I do say so myself. Look at that. That is a lot of options available across the board for pretty much anything, as well as a few presets if you don't feel like mucking about. The game runs pretty well with everything turned on to maximum. The only thing that I would recommend turning off is maybe SSAO if you're not in a Crossfire or SLI setup, because that is always a drain on the resources. And I had some moments, I think that's now been optimized. It was about a week ago that when I had this option on, that there were certain maps that would drop below 60 FPS, and I really hated that. But as it turns out, it seems that they've optimized it much, much better now, so you can expect the game to run pretty damn well. I'm experiencing some very high frame rates in a very good-looking game as well, and you'll see that the game looks a hell of a lot better than the beta, and I'll hopefully have a choice, or indeed a chance, to show you. Control settings, you can keymap pretty much everything you like, so that is not a problem at all. Mouse sensitivity, you can even invert all of these axes, which is great, I might add. You can even have attack with keyboard, pyro with keyboard, if that makes you feel better. Gameplay settings, not much. You can show damage numbers or not, I don't know why you wouldn't, and if you want to turn the reticule off because you're crazy and hardcore, then you can do that. But once again, wouldn't exactly recommend it. And that, as they say, is that. Okay. Let's have a look at customization then, shall we? The last time I showed you customization, it was in a bit of a raw state. Not so much anymore. So let's have a look and see what we've got here. So these classes are default, and you can't change them. You gain access to pretty much all of these at the start, and this game does use a leveling system, and it uses an unlock system. The unlock system is based on coins and, to some degree, your experience. There are certain things you can't get at certain XP levels, but the vast majority of content is available at level 1 if you decide to buy it with your coins, and there you can see it down there at the bottom there, just above the XP bar. These classes are fairly well put together. They have what they need to be effective. This guy is in a suit of full plate, I believe. It looks like full plate. He's got a good shield, he's got a good weapon that is fully outfitted with a variety of different options, and he has a full set of perks here, which is a big deal. Having a full set of perks does make you a little bit better, to say the least. The Foot Knight's not too bad either, gets a poleaxe, which is a good option. The Longbowman is totally functional, as is the crossbow. So this is a good set of default classes, and I believe that it does allow the game to be somewhat more balanced and doesn't really favor high-level players all that much. So let's do a little bit of customization on this fellow. This guy used to be my Foot Knight. He was wielding an Executioner's Axe, but I customized him to be a mounted unit. We have a look through perks here, you'll notice that you get a set of perks depending on what you want to do. So if you want to be an archer, you have to actually unlock this and pick at least one perk in this particular area, otherwise you will not be able to use a bow. Man-at-Arms, well, that doesn't really matter all that much. Defensive perks, if you don't have Shield Bearer unlocked, then you will not be able to use a shield. That should seem fairly obvious. Supportive perks, these are not so important, although grab Surgeon whenever you can and get yourself Barber Surgeon, Sterilized Bandages, or Second Opinion. I prefer those ones there. Movement perks, if you don't have this one unlocked, you cannot use Cavalry. And horses are a little bit pricey on the gold side of things, at least for the basic ones. If you want the armored ones, well, they're even pricier. And there's actually a ridiculously pricey one, which is mostly for prestige, more so than anything else. Not actually better. And you can grab yourself perks there as well. Then at level 20, you get to unlock Officer Training, and that will allow you to pick 2 perks from this. If you happen to be the leader of a squad, you can create a banner buff, which will buff anyone nearby with the perks that you have chosen. Now, when it comes to customization, this game does have a crazy amount of it. If we were to go to two-handed swords, for instance, we unlock the Scottish sword here. Then we can switch over to Scottish sword, and you then have 3 choices of fighting style: Common, Imperial, and Milanese, which will affect your swing speed, damage, and all sorts of things like that. You can then pick from a few different types of steel. The Toledo steel is quite good if you happen to be going for a two-handed berserker build that cuts through multiple people without penalty. You can still do damage to multiple people if you happen to be swinging hard enough, you have a big enough weapon, but this will allow you to do it without penalty, so you can cut through multiple opponents very easily. You can then pick the Edge Grind, which will affect the damage, the health of the weapon. Some weapons can break, but for the most part, this is about resisting damage that is coming at you through parries. So if you have a very tough weapon like this, then when you get hit on a parry, you're not going to be taking any damage, bleeding through there, and things like that. So that's not too shabby at all. Once again, weapons can, I believe, break. I've not really seen a sword break. Shields definitely do, though. There's no question. And lancers break all the time. Balanced or standard pommel, and as you can see, that's a hell of a lot of customization. I think the only thing that the game doesn't have that I would really like is a lot of weapon customization for the cosmetic side of things. I'd like to be able to put some cool stuff on my sword, but it seems like they focused very much on the idea of realism and authenticity with this particular game. Sidearm, same kind of thing. You can then pick helmets, heavy, light, and medium helmets, which can all be unlocked. Now, all of these look different, and they can also be colored. You can actually go to your armor. If I say suit of plate, which is what I've got here, you can pick from a wide variety of different colors, plus whatever crest that you happen to have customized, and all of these are entirely optional, as you can see, so it's not like you actually need to unlock any of that. That's just a case of customization. There are even a few rather weird-looking armors, like the Peasant Rags. These are just designed for silly personalization, and if you want a big challenge, this is not good at all. And as you can see, it's level 60 unlock for that. So the vast majority of weapons and everything can be gotten very early on. I mean, I'm level 20. That didn't take me too long, honestly. And I've probably played maybe 10, 20 matches most, I would think. And I ended up getting pretty much everything I wanted. And you can, since it's a unlock system kind of similar to the way that Black Ops does it, like you unlock with an actual currency rather than having to wait till level 20, 25 or whatever, then it's pretty good. There are some weapons which are restricted for a short period of time, like I believe the warbow that I use on my heavy archer is restricted until about level 15, but it doesn't take too much to get it otherwise. The warbow's not necessarily better than the longbow, which is what you get by default. In fact, in many ways it isn't, but it does do a pretty significant amount of damage, so yeah, and there is some customization there as well. You can pick the shaft head specifically, and you can upgrade with a couple of different things as well. You can't really customize the way that the bow is actually constructed or anything like that, unless, of course, you want to go for crossbow, which is... Crossbow's kind of crazy in this game, actually. If you go to crossbows, steel spanned crossbow, and then I go to that, and then I can customize the reload mechanism, which is going to affect the little mini-game that happens there. I think I might actually do a crossbow just to show you how the mini-game actually works. What can we get? I think... Shall we go with this one? Yeah, push lever. I actually don't have the cash for that, so I guess we own hand-drawn then. Alright, and... we'll go with that, and you can have either safety, which safety is a big deal, actually, being able to just keep the bolt in the chamber, I suppose. But we'll go with that, just for the case of showing off. I don't really have the unlocks to make this super effective, but we'll go with it anyway. Plus, I'm usually an archer, as opposed to a crossbowman, so God knows what's going to end up happening there. Alright. Okay, I think we're about good to go, so I think I'm going to show you the game now, and we'll see what's what. So you can go up to 64 players in War of the Roses, and there are 2 game modes, and this is definitely a weakness of the game, I think. It could definitely do with more. I'm going to go join this server here, Team Deathmatch. Team Deathmatch or Conquest. Conquest is what you would expect it to be, grab points, hold points. Team Deathmatch is first to 100 kills for the most part. This is definitely something that I would like to see expanded upon in future. I feel it's a little duller than it should be. Now, I've also completely ruined all of my customization here, so that's unfortunate. We'll start with the Heavy Archer, I think. Actually, never mind, I can change this around. I'm going to go back to my lance here. The battle's going to start in 60 seconds. There is this, I think, a 1.5-minute period where you can just sit there customizing your stuff. It takes a little longer than it should. It would be nice just to be able to jump into the game. If I want to customize my profile, I'd rather do it from outside of the game anyway, but unlike Call of Duty, you can actually do it here, which is, yeah, that's pretty good. I'm not really going to complain too much about that. I just think that they've gone too far in the other direction of making you wait too long in that respect. So, yeah, we can go back to that. And I'll keep this as the crossbow just because I want to show you how the crossbow system works. It's got an interesting reload mechanic, and there is a big differentiation between the archer, who you've probably seen quite a bit in the background of my mailbox footage, and the crossbowman. So, I'm intrigued. Are we about ready? Yeah, we are about ready to go. There are 2 more loadout spots that you can grab for extra cash. In-game cash, that is. There are no microtransactions in this game. Which is probably for the best. I would not be a particularly big fan of that. We'll talk about the pricing a little bit later, because there is also the issue to consider of whether or not a multiplayer-only title is actually worthwhile. Alright. I'm going to start off on horseback, as you can see. And I'm also wearing a castle on my head, because why not? Does the job. A lot of people seem to know me in this game. I'm not sure why. It's probably because I put out a lot of video content on this game prior to that. Alright, let us rock and roll. I always get people claiming that I'm fake or whatever in games like this. I don't really blame them. Now, as you can probably see, they've really done a number on the lighting effects this time around. It is actually really rather impressive. I am surprised by the quality of the lighting. Just generally the graphical fidelity of this game. Foliage quality is absolutely fantastic. There's a lot of foliage, a lot of detail, although the foliage draw-in distance is quite short, so you can see some very odd pop-up stuff going on there. Alright, let's go directly at him. That's a quick miss. Now, since the tournament, they did some significant changes to the lance, and it's mostly just on how long it takes for the lance to respawn. I think it now actually takes over a minute, which is a significant amount. Prior to this update, the lances weren't actually breaking all that much, which was incredibly irritating. Well, there goes my horse. They also made the horses... Well, yeah, the horses die a lot quicker, which is probably for the best, because horses just used to be absolutely ridiculous. Now I'm in the middle of their entire team, which is probably not going to go well. You'll notice that half of the screen is blocked off. That's going to put my visor down, which is a very neat feature. This game has some fairly precise hitboxes and allows you to send a arrow through somebody's visor, which is very neat. You'll also notice executions. These are actually a key mechanic of the game. You get bonus gold from doing that, and revival is quite easy. If you don't finish off an enemy, then someone is probably going to be able to get them right back up again, which is definitely not an ideal situation, is it? No, it is not. Alright, I have my crossbow ready. I see a fellow over there, and in the face. There we go. Very nice. Now, if you want to reload the crossbow, you get this little mini-game here where you have to watch this thing spin around, and you can catch the little notch in the right place. And if you do that, then it will reload quicker. If you don't, it will reload slower. Uh-oh. This is not ideal. Yeah, I'm probably going to die here. This guy's clearly better equipped than I am for melee combat. I have a mace, and he has the giant-ass axe, and, well, yeah, that didn't go well. That did not go well at all. That's fine, though. I mean, the game is balanced in such a way that you can't do everything, and I'm totally fine with that. It's also much, much better that the cavalry is better balanced now. As someone accurately said in the chat, the horses were horrendous. They basically gave you a second life. They were really hard to kill. You could turn on a dime, and your lance respawned in about 20 seconds, so you could kill someone with the lance in one hit, then just move out of the combat and back in again. This time around, the lance breaks... The lance does a little bit less damage, and it has like a minute to reload the lance. I say reload the lance, which is a stupid thing. And killing people on horseback with a short weapon is very, very tricky. It requires a great deal of skill. riding into someone doesn't do any damage, but it can knock them about a little bit and interrupt their actions. So it's not like there isn't a use for it, certainly. And I'm going to be careful to get a little bit deep into the terrain here. Now, what I really like about melee combat in this game, and I'll get onto the negatives in a minute, is the fact that you have a lot of different areas on the actual character that you can do damage to. And it's actually pretty crazy, the accuracy. If you hit someone in the pauldron, the chances are then it'll just deflect entirely. There are various parts of the armor which will take various pieces of damage and have different armor penetration values and things like that. You have to consider the idea of armor-piercing weaponry if you're going up against a lot of heavy-armored opponents. But of course, armor-piercing weaponry is less damaging to light-armored opponents because it won't make them bleed as much, it just won't do as much damage in general. So there are things to consider, very, very much tactical considerations. I'm just going to get him back on his feet. I'm not sure I'm entirely keen on the whole revival mechanic. That guy was really quick to bring up because he actually has a perk which allows him to be revived quicker, and I have a perk which allows me to revive people quickly. So the combination of the two means you can get them right back on their feet, and that is crucial to actually surviving this game and preventing people from getting execution, which is naturally a way to get an awful lot of score. Early access is going to kill this game. I'm not going to explain why. Yeah. The chat is full of standard whining. But what about the negatives? Well, I think ranged combat in this game is absolutely wonderful. It really, really is. It feels great. The actual bows have a lot of recoil. The sound design is absolutely phenomenal, which surprised me a great amount. It's just how fantastic it sounds firing off an arrow or actually having it hit somebody. Also, the way that the sound design works in regards to hitting flesh and grinding up against metal sounds very, very authentic indeed. So I am a huge fan of that. However, probably the thing which annoys me the most in this game is just how floaty the combat feels. And I demonstrated that just a little bit, but if you watch how it kind of works, the swings aren't particularly fast, they don't feel like they've got an awful lot of weight behind them. And when you get into melee combat, it's often an awful lot of changing direction very, very quickly, which is not something you could really get all that much. There's not a lot of momentum. You do have this running feature whereby you hold the button down in one direction long enough, you actually end up running faster. Ooh, that was a good hit. I like that very, very much indeed. And I am wounded. Can I actually get him? He's got a shield. No, I'm going down. No question. But he's down too, so I can't really complain too much about that. The executions are particularly brutal. But yeah, the combat feels very floaty and very whiffy, I suppose, which is really not a word, but the idea of whiffing an attack is like, it goes in the direction of where you think it's supposed to hit, and it ends up missing. And it's mostly just due to the fact that you really have to practice a great deal with the weapons to really learn each of their reaches. Not only that, but a weapon like this, if you hit them with the shaft of the weapon, not the blade, it's not really going to do much at all. And that is something that you don't find in a lot of melee-based games, that degree of accuracy. Once again, we come back to the idea of hitboxes. You have to be very, very accurate in this game indeed. Oh, that was his head off. That's what happens if you're very, very accurate with the poleaxe at the optimum range. If I was a little bit closer, that probably would not have hit at all. Definitely something to consider there. Put the visor down. I don't want to be sniped through the face if yeah, that would be a bit terrible. But I think the melee combat is definitely an advancement on Mount and Blade, which is a game that this game is clearly based on. I mean, they've admitted that freely. It's not like it's a secret or anything. They're not ripping them off. I mean, Mount and Blade was published by the same guys as this was. This is a Paradox-published game. So it's difficult to claim rip-off. They very much took the influence, wore it on their sleeve, and said, yeah, we are influenced by Mount and Blade. The combat definitely feels better. There are a number of different moves that you can execute, like shield bashes, shoves, and hamstrings, the ability to trip people over, charges, and things like that. And you've got this I suppose it's a four-directional attack system, similar to Mount and Blade as well, which often involves stabs and overhead swings. Very useful to get around guard. You can block in 4 different directions as well. If you're using a shield, you generally don't have to, but you can do that one way or the other. So I would say overall the combat definitely feels better, and plus the ability to hit multiple opponents is a huge thing for me. I hated the fact that you couldn't do it in Mount and Blade. Even a big-ass Bardache or anything like that you swung, and it clearly should have gone for a couple of unarmored heads. It didn't, and it would only ever do damage to a single person. You might think, oh, that's probably more realistic, but it definitely isn't more fun. So I'm glad that they have added that to the game. But there are times when the combat does feel really, really floaty and awkward. You get in close and your attacks don't feel like they've got a lot of weight behind them. Occasionally they do. It often depends on the weapon, but I don't think it's perfect. I think they could do an awful lot more with that. Maybe the way that the animations are actually designed is a real problem there. The animations are, for the most part, really good, but some of the melee combat animations do feel a little bit silly. Like, there's just not a lot of force or determination behind them. There's not a lot of decisiveness in there. I'm going to switch this longbowman. It's not my favorite. I prefer to use my custom warbowman, but we'll use it just to show you how this... Oh, God! This is not going to go well, is it? Probably not, no. I might be able to get him. You see, that actually went past him and hit the shield on the back, which is particularly cool. And if I end up hitting the more armored areas with a slashing attack, like, see, I hit him in the coif there, and then there in the shield, and it'll tell you as well, if it hits a shield, it's a different color with the actual shield icon. If it's blue, it hits armor. If it's white, it's hit the shield. So that's definitely useful. Some stuff actually will penetrate the shield. You can get around it, you can do damage to it. Armor-piercing stuff will pierce thinner shields, depending on what kind of shield you happen to be using. I probably won't get the chance to bandage here. I'm going to try. No, he's not going to let me, so I'm going to be bleeding out right about now. Definitely something to consider. Oh, thank you very much, good sir. Thank you. Oh dear. Well, it was going so well. It was good. No, come on. I can get up. I can get up. There we go. There we go. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Now, what this game does really well, I think, is just get the sheer brutality of a medieval battlefield. 64 players is a good number of players to have. Mount and Blade supports more of that, so if you want utter chaos, then that might be the game for you. But the execution mechanic and just the way that combat is just absolutely, utterly merciless in this game is a wonderful, wonderful thing indeed. Well, if you're going to put your shield up there, then I'm just going to shoot you in the leg instead. Oh, that's a little bit close, okay. Need to be careful against this guy. Where to aim? Let's probably aim for the head. There we go, he's down. Thank you, good sir, with the archery. Stabby, stabby! Yes, very nice, very nice. There are still some balance issues with it that I think prevent me from fully enjoying it. The complaints of the player base at the moment seem to be centered around spears and how easy they happen to be to use. One on the leg. I love that accuracy of the hitboxes, I really do. Some people have complained saying, oh, the hitboxes aren't accurate. It mostly just means that you suck. I mean, arrows have a very, very small hitbox indeed, so you have to be extremely precise. You also have to deal with drop-off and things like that, as well as the overall power of your draw. Fairly important. Oh, can we get him? Oh, no. Oh, he's behind me. Never mind. And I definitely think the archery is actually the strength of the game. I haven't played a game that does archery better. It doesn't have horse archery, but I have a feeling that would cause a lot of problems balance-wise. I don't know, maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't. It is lacking from the game, though, one way or the other, and you can't really deny that it isn't there, and that the game arguably misses it. Certainly if you're a Mount and Blade fan, then you very much remember horse archery. Possibly fondly, possibly not, I don't know. I personally didn't really find that too bad. Lots and lots of whining in the chat. It's unfortunate. It's like some of the Call of Duty kiddies came over and started complaining about balance, and it's pretty pathetic. I mean, the cavalry is now pretty well balanced. There is actually quite a lot of skill involved in using a weapon on the back of a horse. The lance takes like over a minute to respawn, so... Wow, this guy's 34 for 2. I have no idea what he was actually using. He was... What was he using? Because he's had no head... did he have a headshot? He's had not a single headshot, so that indicates to me that he's not an archer. I'm very, very curious. I didn't actually see him knocking around the place, but hey. Map variety is pretty good. There's quite a lot of good design surrounding it as well. The weather effects are absolutely awesome. They do simulate the greyness of the English weather quite nicely. Difficult to complain about that. Lighting effects and just texture work across the board. The game just looks great. It's really hard to argue that point either. Like, come on, really? You don't think this looks great? It does. It looks really, really good. Exceptional, in fact. Alright, I'm gonna grab my warbow. I usually go with armor piercing. I designed this to take down armored horses, and that's exactly what it does. You can actually put this through a shield and things like that, so it's pretty nice. With footed shafts, I don't really need a double quiver. Usually have enough ammo as long as you're not spamming it. Ammo does regenerate quite slowly. Sidearm-wise, I might actually switch out for an axe. See which one does the most damage. A short, simple bill? Yeah, why not? Let's go with that. That actually does quite a bit of damage. Imperial or the Milanese fighting style, could just go with common. Common fighting style is fine. Kind of steel. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that. Unfortunately, it's hopped me in there. I'm hoping it's got the changes that I was looking for. Yeah, I got my warbow. I guess that'll do. Alright, I'm gonna set up this squad. Ardo can spawn here. There we go. This is one of my favorite maps, actually, because it's very much battling over a castle, so there's a lot of ramparts you can get on, there's a lot of elevated areas that you can shoot from, and archery is definitely one of my favorite things. And now everything and their mother is heading in my direction! And I'm gonna die. Horribly. Chances of surviving this encounter fairly slim. If I can get in nice and close, then his poleaxe won't actually be able to do all that much damage. There we go. Yeah! Have some of that. Smack him about. Like it, like it. Hey! Don't interrupt my execution, it's very rude. Yeah! Have some mace. Have some mace, come on. Have some of that. Uh-oh. Yeah, this is gonna go badly. Let's bandage. I think he's been forced away, so... as long as I don't get sniped, everything should be fine. Bandaging over there. Now, there's one thing I really hate, the squad spawning. You'll notice that someone just popped in there. There's a reason for that. There is a squad spawn mechanic, which allows entire squads of infantry to pop out of the arse of whoever happens to be on the field. They've got to be on a flat surface, but that really is about it. I hate it. I really do not like it at all, and I would love to see it gone. Oh, hello. I don't think it suits the game all that much at all. It's... you know, if we're going to go with realism thing, then there's all sorts of things you can complain about, but it's horrible to go up against one person and then have 5 other guys just pop out behind him. It completely ruins the dueling aspect of the game, and I ideally hope they strongly reconsider how it works. It would be nice to maybe be able to spawn in certain areas near where your squad leader happens to be. So maybe there could be preset spawn points that only activate when you happen to be nearby, and that might work. I think there's definitely a potential for that, but in its current state, I think the squad spawning mechanic is an absolute bloody mess. We should also talk about the longevity of the title. Once you've unlocked everything, the fact that there's only 2 game modes, and I think there's about 7 maps for this game, could very well be a black mark on it. Is it still fun to fight? And I've been playing this since the alpha, and I'm still enjoying it. I'm still having a... ow! Where is he? I'm still having a great deal of fun... wow! I'm still having a great deal of fun with the title. But I don't know if it's going to really have the longevity going forward. It's a $30 game, which is not unreasonable, but it is multiplayer only. Single player is pretty much just battle training. There's some limited storyline stuff based on the War of the Roses itself. There we go. You are done. Thank you very much. I think I could just revive Silent J as well. Which is okay. I mean, if you need training in how the battle system actually works, then that's fine, but a full-on campaign with some interesting squad command elements or whatever would have maybe helped the game. It doesn't have that, though, so something that you want to consider is a $30 game with that multiplayer and only 2 game modes really worthwhile. Now, I am bringing up this comparison video with Chivalry, and that lighting is so good, by the way. The comparison video with Chivalry is coming once we're closer to Chivalry's release. It's not really fair to compare a release game to a beta, honestly. But I think the conclusion that I'll definitely come to on that is that Chivalry just has a more interesting game mode. It's objective-based, it changes on a map-by-map basis, and gameplay in this really doesn't. It's either team deathmatch or it's conquest, and there's nothing in between. And I hope that they add more game modes. Some objective-based stuff that isn't just conquest would actually be great. I think conquest is actually not a very interesting game mode at all in most types of games. I think it's very played out at this point, and I don't really find it all that enjoyable. Team Deathmatch just seems to be a little bit more fun. There's not a lot of teamwork really going on in this game other than just resurrecting people, spawning out of the arse of your squad member, and all of that. Oh, this is not going to go well. Yeah, this is definitely going to go badly. If I can actually stay out of the fighting, maybe I can get him back up on his feet, and I can maybe pop a few arrows behind there, but... can I do it? Can I do it? Oh, the answer is no! I do love the way that the arrows stick precisely in the area that you actually got shot in, which is very nice, and lying on the floor, slumped over a battlement with arrows sticking out of you, it does really give that nice, authentic feel. And if I was to really bring the greatest compliment for this game, it would be that. The feeling of authenticity is there. It's brutal. It pulls no punches. The weapons, at least certainly the ranged weapons, feel really, really powerful. I think they could still do some stuff with the melee weapons to put a lot more weight behind them. Lances into the face, now that feels great. There's really no doubt about that. That's absolutely phenomenal. And I'm a really big fan of how they've managed to pull that off this time around. Definitely a lot better than the lances in Mount and Blade. I mean, combat just in general is better than Mount and Blade, I feel. It's still got some ways to go if I'm gonna call it a perfect medieval combat game. Ow! That's not very nice. Yeah, this is not gonna go well for me. I think I'm just gonna leave now. Goodbye. Go away! Ooh, that was close. But it does what it does pretty well. I think it achieves most of the bullet points that I would like to see from a medieval combat game in its current state. There will no doubt be many, many debates as to which is better, Chivalry or War of the Roses, but in my opinion, War of the Roses is really, really solid and it gets the combat mostly right. I would still like to see melee combat improved. I'd like to see that stupid squad spawning got rid of, and I would definitely like to see more objectives and game types made available, just to make sure that the longevity of the game is maintained. But at its core, it is enjoyable, visceral, and rather skillful indeed, regardless of the balance whining that happens in pretty much every single game, because people just don't actually have a clue what they're talking about. That is the nature of things. It's just a shame that this is clearly a siege and we're not actually doing any sieging at all, regardless of the fire arrows in the background. There you go, folks. That is a look at War of the Roses. This is now out. This is its price comparison. As you can see, $30 are your regional equivalent. The UK gets screwed the most on the price conversion. EU, I believe, is about the same tax rate as you would expect, but it is still slightly more expensive than the US version. Currently available on Steam and Gamersgate. Please do go and check it out if you're looking for multiplayer-only medieval combat. You may not be disappointed. I enjoy it very much, and I'll continue to play it. My name has been Totalbiscuit, and I shall see you next time.